DY Card Ladder is the industry leader in sports card data. We know what you want because Card Ladder was created by collectors for collectors. Card Ladder. Join the innovators, not the imitators.
Hey guys, Bryan with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana. And we're finally here after a couple of one-on-one matchups along the way. We're finally here. This is the first part of a two-part grand finale where Chris and I are going to give our top 10 players of all time. Today's episode is going to be players 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And we're also going to mention, I've got 2 honorable mentions. Chris, how many honorable mentions do you have, Chris McGill?
3.
Okay, so you've got 3. I've got 2. We're not going to take too much time to talk about them. We're going to try to wrap this thing in about an hour. But I don't want people to think this was something we took very lightly and that we're just kind of cursorily knocking this out in an hour. We spent many hours pouring through this thing and kind of agonizing. And before we hit the record button, Chris, we were going back and forth about, like, this is not even really fun. It's like it's causing anxiety, right? I'm thinking to myself and I'm second guessing myself, and there's so many different angles you can take, and it's all in the eye of the beholder. And there's so many ways that we could be have been manipulated by the media and the narrative, and everything is super subjective. We tried to quantify it. We tried to make it objective. And today is just going to be our best effort to give our personal 10 through 6 and then a defense for that, almost as though we're 2 litigators. It's almost as like we both went to law school.
Bryan, that's when I went to law school, I started thinking I wanted to do entertainment law, and that's a lot of paperwork and transactional law, as they call it. But after the first year of law school, I completely switched my interest. I wanted to do litigation. I wanted to stand up in court and say things. So I never got to do that. I never became a lawyer. So this is as close as I'll ever get to being able to do that.
Yeah. We're putting 10 dudes on trial today, and we'll see where they stack up. All right, let's not waste any time. Go with your. Why don't we just do? I'm sure we're going to have some overlap on our honorable mention. Essentially, this is 11 and 12, but we're just going to call them honorable mention. One of my guys is still active, and so give me your 3 honorable mentions, Chris. Are yours in order, or are they just 3 honorable mentions?
I need like 60 seconds of preamble just to break down how I did it.
Do it.
Can I do it? Okay, real quick. So here, everybody knows now who's watching the series that I have my total MVP approach, and that's very predictable. You can see what that result is. You can know what that list is. So why? It wouldn't be maximally interesting if I just regurgitated it. And I've come to think a little more deeply and want to bring statistical analysis a little bit more into that approach, especially after going through this series and this exercise with you. So I decided I want to bring in some stats. I want to bring in a little bit of stats into my final analysis here. And so the way I'm going to do that is now, instead of total MVPs, I have total MVPs.
Oh.
Which just means instead of regular season plus finals MVP, which is what total MVPs are, now it's regular season MVPs plus finals MVPs plus statistical MVPs, which we've referred to a little bit throughout the course of this show. Basically, I have a running list of every season in NBA history, and I calculated who the statistical MVP is using Basketball References 3 catch-all metrics. Don't need to go into how all that is calculated right now. But basically, I've added this third column. I've added this third number to make total MVPs, which is statistical MVP. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm just ranking based on who has the most statistical plus finals plus regular season MVPs. And that list actually causes me to contradict one of the one-on-ones that we did.
Yeah.
I'm still in agreement with all of them except for one, but I'm flipping one for my top 10. I've had a change of heart, I guess, for this ranking.
Wait until we get there. Yeah.
Okay. But here's my 3 honorable mentions.
Okay.
My 3 honorable mentions are Stephen Curry.
Okay.
Who has 5 total MVPs. Giannis, who also has 5 total MVPs. And Bob Pettit. Good old Bob Pettit with 5 total MVPs.
Brother, Hakeem Olajuwon fans are worldwide are rioting. They're in the streets. They're knocking the LA Riders out of the way because they're rioting over this Bob Pettit nonsense. Okay.
I'm sorry. I know. It's crazy. I know.
Okay. So you're this is very out of nowhere. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't have Giannis in my honorable mention, but you've got Giannis in your top 13 players all time already.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm very high on Giannis personally.
I understand. Okay, so I will tell you, I share Steph Curry, and Steph Curry was really close to number 10 for me. And my only other honorable mention was Hakeem Olajuwon. I have Hakeem Olajuwon at number 11. I think it's quite likely, and well, it's actually very, very likely you're going to have somebody in your top 10 that is not in my top 10 and not in my honorable mention. I think that's kind of where we're headed early on when we start doing our top 10. Is there anything you want to say about these honorable mentions? Talk to me about how Pettit, in the dark of night, in the shadows, was lurking in the shadows, and then all of a sudden he emerged as one of the 12 greatest players that ever lived.
Pettit did emerge. He is 13th. So I have ties. So I do have ties, right? So like I actually have 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th are all tied with 5 total MVPs. And I gave you 11, 12, and 13, which is Curry, Giannis, and Pettit. And I had to come up with 4 tiebreakers to sort out those 5. The first tiebreaker, whoever has the most regular season MVPs. The second tiebreaker, whoever has the most finals MVPs. The third tiebreaker, whoever has the most statistical MVPs. And then the fourth tiebreaker, whoever has the most championships. So that's how Pettit got knocked down to the bottom of those 5. Yeah, exactly. So Pettit just he totaled up a couple of statistical MVPs, a couple of regular season MVPs, got his number to 5. I mean, that's how we got there. Now, here's the problem with my list. This is one of the biggest chinks in the armor, so to speak, in my list, is that it's not era adjusted at all. It's just
it can't be.
Well, I mean, you could, theoretically, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah.
The rings have to be era adjusted, right? We've talked about that. The total number of teams, if the total number of teams is 8 versus 32, those should not be equally weighted.
Right.
And I guess, the same can be said about MVPs. I mean, if you're competing with, 96 guys for MVP, that's different than 350 guys or whatever, 450 guys, whatever it is now, right? But again, just to be clear, like this is a statistical analysis. This is a numbers on paper analysis. This is an awards won analysis. This is not, and we should have reiterated this at the beginning in case somebody missed the first 4 or 5 episodes we did. This is not if Shaq and Bob Pettit played one-on-one, would Bob Pettit be deceased at the end of the game? He would. That's not what this is, okay? This is not who are you picking as your teammate if you are heading downtown to go to the park to play a pickup game. Right. And so there's more, it's strictly players versus their peers during the time that they played the sport of basketball. And then we can talk through the nuance and the pace and space versus the, were they plumbers and firemen? I don't know. Were they plumbers and firemen? I don't know. We'll save the plumbers and firemen argument. We won't even waste it on Pettit. We're going to save it because I think there's a couple other guys where we're going to have to talk about that, right? So,
So just on Pettit real quick, the 3 seasons where he was the statistical MVP were 55, 56, 56, 57, and 58, 59. So he did all his work in the 50s to get himself those 3 statistical MVPs and the 2 regular season MVPs. So, he's representing the 50s. He's the one guy, I think, from the 50s who ultimately ends up making my top 13.
He was pre-Wilt almost. Well, he won a title during the Wilt and Russell era when no one else did. Mikan never entered into the conversation for you. Mikan's numbers were not impressive to me. He was, you want to talk about Wilt being bigger and stronger than everybody. I mean, Mikan was really an anomaly way, way back in even the 40s. And so I never got there. I never needed to look at him because I remember one time I looked at Mikan and there was no question he was the greatest player of all, of all time at one point. But, right. The NBA changed really rapidly after Mike. And so Mike never entered the picture. Honest to God, I'll be honest with you. I never examined Pettit because I never thought Pettit belonged in the conversation. This is just me, and I didn't go too deep into it. And he's a LSU Tiger, and he's a Baton Rouge native, and I sit next to him at basketball games, and I know his son. I never thought he crept into the conversation with Wilt and Russell personally. But numbers. I mean,
look, Bryan, I am so far removed from knowing what was going on in the NBA in the 40s and the 50s and 60s and 70s. Honestly, like my my knowledge really even only begins to blossom in the 80s, and then it gets a lot better in the 90s onward. But this is the thing, right? Like, for better or worse, I think that the plus side of a method like mine is that the results come out as they come out, and I'm not injecting any sentiment or feeling or nostalgia or anything at the results level. All my biases, and there are biases, but my biases happen at the level of programming the algorithm. My biases happen at the level of deciding what the criteria is going to be. So I just say, look, the best I can come up with on a simplistic level is just to say, look, how many MVPs did you get? How many finals MVPs? That means your best player on the best team, supposedly. It's supposed to mean that. How many regular season MVPs? You're the best player during a regular season, whatever best means. And then how many statistical MVPs? So I can get those three numbers pretty easily, and I can add them up, and I can come out with a number. Now, is it going to give the right example? Like you said, like, look, if Bob Pettit and Shaq played, just cue up that highlight of Shaq dunking on old Chris Dudley, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Okay, just cue that up, because that's what it's going to look like. All right. So, but basketball is also a game of 5 on 5, not 1-on-1, and we have the era thing. So yeah, million caveats. But anyway, I'm very interested to hear where we go from here, because you're right. There's going to be at least, I think, at least one guy that I think there's going to be two guys in my top 10 that didn't even make your. Yeah.
Well, here, let me ask you this question before we get there. On your finals MVPs, you're guessing who the finals MVP were. I
don't give. If the league didn't give the finals MVP, I don't give it either.
Well, how is that fair? So Pettit's ranked 13th, and he didn't even get the finals MVP that we know he would have gotten?
He got no finals MVPs. Yep. He just has 3 statistical MVPs and 2 regular season.
The issue would be, if you didn't carve that out, right, then this would be a very short conversation, and Bill Russell would be a problem.
Bill Russell would be a problem. But like, it's almost like the NBA saved us, or it saved my approach, because it was like they didn't even find it. The thought didn't even enter into their heads. We need 2 MVP awards for each season, because their playoffs were like 2 rounds, literally 2 rounds. I mean, they had like 8 to 12 teams. So it never even entered into their minds that we need 2 MVPs until later. And I think that works out pretty well.
Yeah. Agreed. Talk to me about Giannis. So if you've got Giannis at number 12 or tied for 9, possibly, then you believe Giannis at some point, he's definitely got a great opportunity to work his way into the top 10. Of course, he's going to be stiff arming a lot of other guys that are active players. He's going to be stiff arming Curry. He's going to be trying to stiff arm Jokic. He's going to be, he's trying to hold these other guys off and or leapfrog them, depending on where they are on your list. But I'm shocked that you've got Giannis that high that quickly. I think I would have him in my top 20 for sure, without having even examined any further. Like, I didn't examine any further, but I would have Giannis probably around my top 20.
So I'll tell you this, Giannis on the statistical side has been a top 3 statistical MVP candidate for like 7 straight years.
I know.
Okay? He could win MVP next year by putting up the exact same numbers he put up for the last 3 seasons. I mean, that's how elite this guy is. That's how close he is to being the best player. And he is showing no signs to me of slowing down at all. I think next year he's going to be just as good as he was last year. I think if he were to win another regular season MVP, it wouldn't surprise me. If he were to end up on a super team and rattle off another finals MVP or 2, it wouldn't surprise me. So I think there's so much gas left in Giannis's tank that could drive him into my top 10, into my top 5 even.
Well, he was recently quoted as saying he's, owes it to the city of Milwaukee to stick it out and ride it out. I mean, would you agree that he ain't doing anything in Milwaukee? I don't think Milwaukee can fix Milwaukee by the time Giannis's prime is over. I don't think there's any scenario. I mean,
I hate to call it a lost season, because right now the Eastern Conference has a team with 50 wins in the finals, and I think Giannis can get the Bucks to 50 wins. And I think they got some really bad bounces in the first round. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't. It's the East, man. It's the East, and Boston is hampered. And I'm not going to just completely categorically say that. There's like 8 teams I think that could win the East next year. Milwaukee's one of them. But yeah, I think he's at a big disadvantage right now. His co-star is sidelined.
Got a big $50 million anchor around his neck that's going to play 0 games next season.
Nobody's winning. It's very difficult to see anybody winning with $50 million in street clothes. Yeah. I mean, I watched Jokic deal with that, with Jamal Murray being out for about a year and a half. Yeah, Boston with Tatum, like, it's tough, man. When you win that much, especially now we're in this second apron world.
Yeah. What about Olajuwon? You're a humongous Olajuwon fan.
love
You've
Olajuwon.
teetered with the idea of collecting Hakeem
Yeah.
Olajuwon basketball cards,
Yeah.
and yet no mention of the Dream in your top 13.
Well, the Dream is right there.
Yeah.
The Dream is at 4. I'm pretty sure that's where he ended up at in total MVPs. Let me see. Where's Dream? Oh, sorry. Dream has 3. Dream has 3 total MVPs. So like Hakeem is in a tricky spot for me because like he was always like one of the top 5 statistical players during that peak, but he never actually won a statistical MVP. And his nemesis, who was a guy who I rooted against strongly in the 90s, was David Robinson. Well, David Robinson, I'm pretty sure he had 3 statistical MVPs.
He was an animal statistically.
Like people, I don't think the media, the fans, the league, I don't think it really understood what he was when he was doing it. And if you could plop him or his prototype into the game today and equip him with some of the skills of the ultra-modern player, I don't know, man. He just, so a guy like Rob, like as time rolls on, I develop my approach to how I want to think about players. David Robinson's a guy who's risen. Hakeem has fallen, but that doesn't change my nostalgia for him. I mean, like when Jordan retired, I switched over to the Rockets, and then they delivered that 93-94 championship. And that was one of my favorite sports moments as a kid, period, was like actually rooting for the team that ended up winning. Then they did it again in 94-95. Hakeem had those epic playoff matchups with the Jazz and with Robinson. And I mean, then going toe-to-toe with Shaq in the finals. I mean, I have so many fond memories of Hakeem. He is one of my favorite players. I tried to model my game after, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, like looking at me and looking at Hakeem, but I tried to model my game after Hakeem because I was just so enamored with his post moves, with his footwork. I loved the way he played the game. Probably aesthetically, without a doubt, one of my favorite players. But I have to be honest about it too and just say, look, I mean, I've come to really appreciate the measurables of basketball, and he just isn't. He's. I mean, look, is it a knock to say a guy? I guess I've got his 14th ever. I know. No, it's not. But he's just right outside. He's not quite
Fair enough. I've got him right there with Curry. It's really tough. The one measurement that I like is the combined all league with the combined all defense, and that it's really it's also funny coming from me because I played 0 defense when I played basketball, at every level. I never played defense. I just outscored it. I tried to outscore everybody, right? It's all the same.
Okay.
Olajuwon's got 21 combined, all league and all defense.
What was your game? Were you a 3-level scorer? Were you attack the rim pressure, shooter?
Well, growing up as a Caucasian kid who was vastly underweight, I was a shooter, period. Like I would fit the mold. I would be your Kyle Korver type. Yeah. And then as I got after my senior year, I kind of developed. I ended up playing NAIA in college, and I was point guard. And so I actually got very athletic, and I was big for my position at like 6'4", 205. So I was big for a point guard back then. That was big for a point guard, especially at the NAIA level. So I did not model my game after Olajuwon. Why do I feel like in 6th grade you were like 5'11", like 170? Like you were the early grower. Were you the early grower kid?
No, I wasn't, not necessarily, but like compared to my peers, I was more like a Charles Barkley physically compared to my peers. I was bigger, like I was like an undersized 4 basically. And that's why, like in middle school on my rec league teams at the community center and stuff, like I played the post, and that was my bread and butter. Like I was all about the post moves, man. I love, even today when I play pickup basketball, and like I'm sure like the new generation, like what's this guy doing? I'll just back somebody down, hit him with 3 or 4 head fakes, and then that's the game. I learned, and maybe a little dream shake, even fade away to the baseline.
I see you like Jackie Moon in the movie saying, bring it in, bring it down, throw it in. No, take it back. No, bring it in. I got it now. I'm ready.
Exactly.
All right, we ready? You ready for top 10? How should we do this? We didn't talk about this beforehand. Should we just go one slot at a time and share our top 10? Let's just do it that way. You give me your 10, and you give me your pitch for number 10 and the hardest decision about it versus the honorable mentions, or why maybe that number 10 distinguished themselves from the honorable mentions that were right behind. And then I'll do the same with mine, and then we'll just work our way through, and we're going to try to get through number 6 today. So today everybody's going to get our 6 through 10, and we'll go in descending order. Go for it. Give me your number 10.
Okay. Number 10 for me is Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan's got 5 total MVPs. He he's another guy like Hakeem who comes in with 0 statistical MVPs. He was always very close. He was always right up there at the top, but he never quite won a statistical MVP. But he's got 5 of the others. He's got 2 regular season and 3 finals. And he's tied at 5 with Curry, Giannis, and Pett at the honorable mentions, but he wins the tiebreaker because the tiebreaker against those guys goes to the most finals MVPs. So I got to a second tiebreaker against those other 3 guys, and Duncan wins it on that level. So that's how Duncan came in at number 10 for me. And aesthetically, based on vibes or whatever, I am glad Tim Duncan ended up in the top 10 and at roughly this position, because I do think like his accolades, his resume, they are tremendous. And also the fact that he won no statistical MVPs, those 2 factors sum him up to me. Yeah. I think that's exactly who he is. He was very near the best. He played on great teams. He was a great winner, but never really was a statistically true, dominant number 1 type of guy.
He in the question, it's just it irks me because, well, first of all, I want it to be very clear. I freaking hated all those Spurs teams, and it wasn't because of Tim Duncan. I hated Bruce Bowen with a passion. Could not stand Bruce Bowen. Thought he was the dirtiest cheater. He was the Draymond before Draymond. Yeah, could not stand those teams, and it was all because of him. I did Bruce not
Bowen, real quick on Bruce Bowen. I used to watch him play for the Rockford Lightning when I was younger. He played for the local CBA team that was there when I was growing up. And I have, from one of the games, I have a team bag that has a Bruce Bowen Rockford Lightning card in it.
Burn it.
But I don't know where it is now. So
Tim Duncan, the question, when you say 5 total MVPs, well, I know he has 0 statistical because he was never permitted to do that. I wonder, had he been permitted to be the guy, what his numbers would have been. You know what I mean? I mean, he averaged 19 points per game. He's going to average the fewest points per game of almost everybody that's in our top 10. If not fewer than everybody in our top 10. 19 points per game is not a lot. Even during his prime, he was 23.3 points per game. That's like Jamal Crawford's probably done that or gotten close to it, right? So the question is, could Duncan have done more? And do people penalize him for not doing more? What if Duncan had gotten the field goal attempts that his counterpart, Kobe Bryant, because those guys are often measured and compared with each other, same era, same numbers, really close. We did a whole video on it, and they were almost indistinguishable. What would Duncan have done if he had gotten 27 field goal attempts per game like Kobe did in some occasions? The one thing I'll say about Duncan is he's 8th in win shares all time. So he checks every box except in his prime. I don't think in his prime, Tim Duncan compares to the other guys that are ahead of him on my list. I don't think he was ever as good as prime Bird, ever as good as prime Magic, prime Wilt, prime Kareem, prime Jordan, prime LeBron. I don't think he was ever as good as them prime-wise, but longevity-wise, he obliterates Magic. He obliterates Bird. It's almost like he's a combination of Karl Malone along with these kind of guys. Not that he played, that many games, but same kind of deal, right? So I love it. I love Duncan at 10. You're not going to believe who I have at number 10. And we're not even really going to talk too much about statistics.
Sure.
My argument about this gentleman that I have chosen at number 10, on the one hand, I have to argue with you why he belongs in the top 10. And then on the other hand, I have to argue with old heads about why he is only number 10.
Why he's not higher? Okay.
I'm about to be getting it from every direction. Let's just put it that way for number 10. And I've got Bill Russell, Whiskers.
Okay.
Old Whiskers himself. Let me give you first. Let's talk about.
I'm surprised. You're like splitting the baby here because so then I'm going to revise my statement. I didn't think you had Russell in the top 10. Now that you do, I think we only have one disagreement.
The more I thought about it, Chris, the more I had to do it. I had to do it. The guy has just won too many titles, and he was the best player on a title team, and they've got 11. And I don't know how to reconcile that because statistically, it's always like, oh, it was Wilt and Bill. No, it was just Wilt. But Bill Russell was a great rebounder and a great defender and obviously a great teammate. A couple of thoughts, and this is how Bill Russell got into my top 10. So first, I'll tell you why he's in the top 10. Then I'll tell you why he's not higher in the top 10 for all the old folks out there that are like, you can't have Bill Russell 10. You got to have him 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever. So top 5 MVP voting 11 times. Okay. And that's not 11 like Kobe, 11 out of 20. This is 11 out of 13 seasons. So 11 of his 13 seasons, he was in the top 5 in MVP voting. He won 11 rings. He would have won, I would assume, if not 11 NBA Finals MVPs, it would be 9 or 10 or something like that, which of course would obliterate everybody else. He has 11 alpha rings. So he was the alpha on all of his teams. He made all NBA only. He made all NBA 11 out of 13 seasons, but he was only first team all NBA 3 times. In fact, one year he won MVP and he was not first team all NBA, which just shows you how screwy the NBA voting situation was back then. Who knows what the hell was going on? He made 12 All-Star teams in 13 years. Other things about Russell. Okay, so that's why he's in my top 10. He just won too damn much, and it would be too disrespectful to put Olajuwon or Steph Curry, who's made 4 All-NBA first team, 10 All-NBA teams in 16 years. And, I just can't do it. And he was too good. He's arguably the greatest defender of all time. I think he has the most defensive win shares in history, which is saying a lot because he only played 13 seasons. So I have him in there. Here's why he's not higher. He's 6'10", 215. And Kevin Durant, for instance, who plays wing, is 6'11", 240. So he's smaller than Kevin Durant. I've got a problem with that. He had, guess how many consecutive 20 points per game seasons Bill Russell had in his career? 13 seasons.
0.
The dude never scored 20 points in a game.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I can't put him higher than the top 10. If he never scored 20 points per game, then how can I put him in my top 10? You hear the argument against Wilt Chamberlain all the time, Chris. He played against plumbers and firemen, right? Let's just get this out of the way. Well, if Wilt Chamberlain was playing against plumbers and firemen and it was just so easy to put up 50, then why did Bill Russell never score 20? So you can't reconcile those two things. Either Bill Russell was a horrific offensive player or Wilt Chamberlain really was playing against plumbers and firemen. You can't have both. You can't reconcile those things. And then I've got Bill Russell. And this is going to get a lot of because off the court behavior that couldn't be more opposite. And I'm going to get a lot of heat for that. Bill Russell was honestly like a Dennis Rodman type. When your only purpose on the basketball court is to get as many rebounds as you can and defend the rim and be the best team defender you can be, your offensive stats are a complete afterthought, and it's all taken care of with your Hall of Fame teammates. It's easier to do those two things. It's easier to defend and rebound when all you're required to do is defend and rebound, right? And that's why Dennis Rodman was such a great rebounder and such a great versatile defender. Wilt, on the other hand, was doing anything and everything, okay? And so for that reason, even though he's got 11, I've got him far, far, far behind Wilt because Wilt was doing what Bill Russell did on the defensive end and on the glass, but he was also dominating the game like it's never been dominated before. The other problem I have with putting Bill Russell any higher than 10th is his PER is 18, which is right exactly the same as Derek Favors. That's not top 10 caliber stuff. His win shares first all time. His defensive win shares first all time, period. The best there ever was. His offensive win shares 94th. So he is a polarizing figure. If somebody said they had him as their 4th, I would not have a problem. If somebody says they have him as their GOAT, I've got a problem. If somebody says they have him 4th, 5th, 6th, or 15th, okay. I mean, like we could go around and around and have this circular argument all day long. You've got to defend having him in your top 10. You also got to defend not having him in your top 3. That's the way I look at him. He's the only player like that.
Yeah, I think you made the case. I think you made the case, but we also need to see, like, here's a comparison: Bill Russell versus Tim Duncan. I'm assuming Tim Duncan's going to be higher on your list.
He is.
Fair? Okay.
Yep.
What's the big difference between these two guys? I mean, isn't Tim Duncan just the 90s, 2000s version of Bill Russell in a certain sense? Like, he is a guy who, like you were talking about, hey, Duncan didn't get a lot of field goal attempts. Yeah, because, if Duncan was on much higher usage, would he have been the defensive player? Would he have been the rebounder? Would he have been the teammate that he ultimately became in order to help those Spurs get to where they got? And then sort of, Duncan's hallmark was never going to be just this totally dominant guy who you could go watch on a Tuesday night and he's putting up 50 points and grabbing 15 rebounds and dishing 8 assists. Like it would take him maybe 2 or 3 games to get to those numbers. He was never going to do that, but he was the best player on a championship team many times. And what is that worth? How do we measure that?
The difference is simple. It's one answer. He played almost 500 more games. Yeah. I mean, that's the answer. I mean, he made more all defensive teams than Bill Russell ever even played in the NBA. He did it in a tougher era against tougher peers with more big men, gladiators, with names, guys that go by one name, Ewing, Dream, Admiral, Shaq. I mean, go down the list, dude. He did it in that era. I mean, you can keep going. He did it partially during the Jordan era. He did it during the Kobe LeBron era. Whereas Russell only had to contend with Wilt and he had superior teammates. And so not longevity, but just like aggregate really does. I mean, it's gotta matter, man. It's the same reason Bo Jackson's not better than Walter Payton. I mean, we saw Bo Jackson run a football. If you ask me who would you want to run the football, the next 10 plays, I would pick Bo Jackson over Walter Payton. Yeah. But if you ask me who was the greatest running back or who was the better running back, I would say Walter Payton because he did it 8 billion more times than Bo Jackson did.
Good point.
Number 9.
You helped me just make my case because in number 9, I do have one slot ahead of Tim Duncan, actually. Or I'm sorry, you made the opposite case of the one that I need to make. I have Bill Russell.
And so, okay.
I've got Russell and Duncan tied, obviously. Remember, I had 5 guys tied with 5 total MVPs, and Russell's at the top of that list because he gets the tiebreaker, the first tiebreaker, most regular season MVPs. All of Bill Russell's MVPs are regular season. He's got the 5 regular season, 0 finals, as we know it didn't exist, 0 statistical for all the reasons that you just gave. So Bill Russell right there, he's got 5 regular season. That puts him, I had to come up with a way to break the tie. If somebody says, hey, a better way to break the tie would be more finals MVPs and then Duncan or, but somebody could say, well, there wasn't finals MVPs. So maybe we should, I don't know. Him and Duncan, to me, I really like where they landed on my list.
Mm-hmm.
My sense of basketball history and my sense of the type of player that they were and the role that they played and how valuable they were to playing specific roles on championship teams, on dynasties, on teams that dominated for a decade plus. Looking at that, I don't want to say these guys are greater than the names that are coming up ahead of them on this list, but I definitely need these guys to be highly recognized for being in the very specific ways that they were all-time great basketball players. And when I say all-time great, I mean guys who contributed in significant ways, in the most important ways relative to their teammates, to winning championships.
Yeah.
So I got Russell at 9th. I do have him over Duncan at 10th, but it's a tiebreaker. Basically, I see those guys as pretty similar.
It's weird because they're clearly alphas. Like, we're not sitting here saying this is not Scottie Pippen. This is not, Klay Thompson. These are alphas, but they're alphas with like embedded role player type qualities and approaches to the game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need all of the attention, nor do I even want all the attention. And the ability to fit in with anybody and everybody. I mean, all of the parts around Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker just kept changing, but it was you still look back on it and you say the Spurs dynasty, even though all those little parts around them kept changing, those guys are akin to each other. There's no doubt. But what I have concluded is that you did waffle, and you waffled on the Kobe Duncan. Okay, so stay tuned. More to come. Okay, so you've got Russell.
Did I take? I think I still did take Duncan over Kobe. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we both did by a hair.
Okay, because
we were ducking for cover. Remember, we were like, Duncan, don't hit me.
I've got a bigger waffle coming up here in a minute. That's going.
I bet you do. All right, number 9 for me, and I think our 8s and 9s might be transposed. Who knows? But I've got Kobe at number 9.
Okay.
We've already done it, and I'll just go ahead. Let me just spill the beans, and I'll give you my number 8. It's Duncan. Okay. And so I've got Duncan at number 8, and I've got Kobe at number 9. And I can't stress enough. We talked for a full hour about it, how razor thin the difference between these two players are. And it's not like, with Duncan, when you compare him to most other players, you're like, yeah, but Duncan was a better defender. Duncan was a better defender than Kobe, but man, Kobe was a great defender, and he won tons of All-NBA defensive teams, and we've seen him lock up and do the things he did. And so Duncan is just I think he is a better defender than Kobe was a defender. The margin between them defensively is greater for Duncan than the margin was offensively between Kobe and Duncan. Not in total counting stats, but when you take into account efficiency and things like that, that's really where I punish Kobe. His PER was 31st all time. This is Kobe. Duncan's PER was 15th all time. Kobe's win shares per 48 minutes, right, which is a big one, right? That's a big one for us. 66th all time. Duncan's 17th. And then the usage is really what tells the story. Duncan accomplished what he accomplished. Kobe accomplished what he accomplished. Kobe needed a lot more shots to do it. 31.8 usage is the 4th highest of all time. Tim Duncan, 52nd highest usage of all time at 27. And so really efficiency and then just a slight advantage defensively for Duncan is what distinguishes those two, because they both played so durable, so consistent, clear alphas, both parts of dynasties, however you want to phrase it. Both of them have, 10 rings. And then the only other thing is Duncan was always the best player on his team, and Kobe wasn't always the best player on his team. And so for that reason, I just give a slight nod to Duncan 8, Kobe 9.
Great breakdown. I don't disagree with the ranking. We've been over it. I will say I'm not taking anything away from Duncan's alphaness on all those Spurs teams, but he did lose Finals MVP to a teammate twice.
I know. Who was the best player on the team?
Yeah,
Who was the best player on the team?
Duncan.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe that last Kawhi one, you could say it was really more egalitarian, those 5.
Well, go look at the 82 game numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not. Yeah. I mean.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to stop trying to guess who's on your list, because I didn't see Kobe coming. Kobe ain't in. Spoiler alert, Kobe ain't in mine.
Kobe's not in your 10?
Kobe didn't even make my honorables.
I'm safe.
But I got Kobe. Kobe's right there with Hakeem. Kobe and Hakeem both have 3 total MVPs. So obviously I got Kobe as an all-time great. But
when you ran your numbers, Chris, Kobe never got a statistical MVP.
Never did. And the regular season MVP that he got, he was second, I'm pretty sure. First, you'll never guess who was first. This we're talking about the 07-08 season, right?
07-08.
Let me just make sure that I got that right.
God, if I had to guess, I would certainly guess LeBron, but it's obviously no.
LeBron is obviously okay. All right, let me backtrack. Kobe in the statistical MVP rankings was 8th in the season that he won MVP. He did get higher in other seasons, but he was 8th in that season.
Really?
LeBron was 2nd. So LeBron is an excellent guess. Kevin Garnett was 3rd. Yet this is the only time this guy won a statistical MVP. He's like a top 10 fringe guy. Derrick Rose, when Derrick Rose won MVP, he was 5th.
Yeah, I knew he wasn't even.
You got the position right. You got the position right.
Point guard.
It is a point guard.
Mark Price was retired by then.
This guy was involved in the most controversial non-trade ever. Chris Paul.
Okay.
That's Chris.
I remember
Paul's
being down here and thinking, God, if we could have won some more games, he probably would have won MVP.
I'm telling you, man, he was the statistical MVP. That's his one that year. It's his one statistical MVP. And Chris Paul, I don't want to do too big of a riff on Chris Paul, but if the way that you judge a basketball player is how much better do they make their team at winning,
yes,
there are not many players in the history of basketball who can say they make teams better than winning than Chris Paul, and he's got the advanced stats to prove it, and he's just got the top level, surface level stuff to prove it. Just look at when he joins a team, the year before he joins a team to the year after he joins.
Counting numbers, net wins, analytics, all of it, and durability. He's played forever. I say durability. I know he's had his deals, but he's played forever. It's 2 decades now we're counting. So I did a video on this, Chris, where I changed my mind. I used to always say Hakeem Olajuwon's the most underrated player of all time, right? And I changed it. And I was like, I started looking at the numbers. I'm like, Chris Paul is the most underrated player that ever lived. He is the most underrated. Nobody would have Chris Paul in their top 25 players.
Dude,
nobody would even mention his name. Statistically, he's a problem.
didn't he lead the league in steals like 6 times?
He's a problem. He's a much better defender than people realize. He made all NBA defensive teams. He's 5'11", you know?
Look at what happened to Phoenix. Phoenix essentially swapped out Chris Paul, an old Chris Paul, for Kevin Durant. Yeah. And they fell off a cliff. Phoenix was like a 64-win team when Chris Paul was there.
Yeah, so anyway, Phoenix is in trouble. Yeah, not to get off topic, but yes.
Okay, sorry for that Chris Paul diatribe there.
How about this? Let me make one observation here. So we've talked about Olajuwon. We've talked about Russell. We've talked about Kobe. We've talked about Duncan. I think that's everybody that we've talked about. None of those guys were ever a statistical best in the world.
No.
For any season, and that's a combined, almost 40 seasons combined amongst those 4 guys, and none of them were. And that's how you know we're splitting hairs. You know why? Because the dudes that we're about to see that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 have all of those statistical MVPs. They've got them all. They gobbled them all up during the era that these 4 guys played in. Okay, go for it. We need your number 8.
Yeah, so my number 8 is the last guy on my list to not have a statistical MVP, to sort of put a cherry on that. And he is obviously among the non-statistical MVP guys. He's the guy who was like second the most, but never quite got first. And that's because of who his career overlapped with. But my number 8, and this is my waffle, Magic Johnson. Whoa. Magic Johnson is my number 8 with 6 total MVPs.
You're double waffling. You've waffled twice.
I got the waffle. I'm the continental breakfast with that waffle maker out. I'm serving the waffles. I got Magic Johnson there. I mean, he has 0 statistical MVPs, which is what's holding him back. And he was second. Like I said, he was second a bunch of times. But unfortunately, when he was in his prime, either Larry Bird was edging him out with statistical MVPs or Michael Jordan was.
MJ. Yeah.
And Michael Jordan, on the statistical side, Magic took 3 MVPs that were Michael's, at least statistically. But I'm not holding it against them. I'm not mad about it. On the single total MVP approach, Magic Johnson's 4th, right? He's very high. But if I bring in the statistical MVPs component, that penalizes him. And so I got Magic in 8th with the 6 total MVPs, 0 statistical. I think it breaks down to 3 finals and 3 regular season. That's how he gets to 6.
He's a table setter. Yeah, I can see that. I can see him never getting a statistical MVP. No doubt about it.
Very close. He was second a bunch of times.
Okay. Well, we've done each of our 8, 9, and 10, and we've got some surprises. You're like the kid who, when he takes his test, you know how the teachers are like, go review your test, go review the answers you got wrong. Yeah. You freaking went back and you changed your mind on 2 videos that we talked about for an hour and spent hours researching for you.
And that was, I have to give you, and I give you credit to that just because walking through, like having a counterpart to talk about this stuff with, which is you, and spending an hour per player made me come to the realization for this audience, for this set, look, the reason I have total MVPs is because that is something any casual basketball fan I talk to can understand. Yes. The most casual collector can understand that. Okay, yeah, there's a finals MVP, there's a regular season MVP. Who got the most? Let's just add those up. And I also think that those are good proxies for who the best player was in most instances. But in this, for your audience, talking with you, I can bring in stats. I can talk about stats a little bit. Like we can
as many stats as you want.
So then I said, you know what? Why don't I, for this final list, let me bring in stats. I'm going to make it a third of my equation. Is stats. Yeah. And when I did that, it did, man. It reshuffled the deck a little bit.
You ready for number 7?
Okay. So let me guess. Let me see if I really don't know where you're going. I really don't know, because Kobe was just such a curveball. Kobe and Bill Russell. I did not think Kobe or Bill Russell was going to be in your top 10.
Who's your number 7? I know, and that was me going back and checking my test on the Bill Russell. And I told you, I was like, I'm not going to put him in there. I just can't stand talking about it because it causes me. I can't process what he did versus what I know him to be as an relatively inept offensive player, right? Who is,
Yep.
And then I started thinking about the firemen and plumbers, and I was like, well, wait a second, If we're going to give Wilt credit for scoring 1 billion points against firemen and plumbers, then how can we not give this dude credit for not letting anyone score ever, and get every rebound?
You got him. That point is very well made and it's effective and how elegant it is. It's just you can't have both. Either we're going to crown Wilt for being a great scorer, but then we need to recognize Russell's accomplishments as a great teammate and a great winner, or we can't recognize either, but we can't recognize one, not the other. Okay, for seven. I'm gonna guess you got Shaq. I got Shaq.
I got Shaq.
Yeah, we both got Shaq at 7.
Okay, good. Let's talk about Shaq. Let's talk about why Shaq is ahead of Duncan, and we don't need to get into Kobe. I can really summarize why Shaq's ahead of Duncan in 2 words, or in two points, 2 easy points. He's the most, and I know Wilt played, back in the 50s. In my lifetime, Shaquille O'Neal is the most dominant basketball player that I have ever seen play the sport of basketball, and that includes Michael Jordan. I have never seen a player more unguardable than Shaquille O'Neal. If instead of having to shoot 2 free throws, you just gave him 2 points, he would be the greatest basketball player that ever lived. Unfortunately, his kryptonite was shooting the free throws, and for that reason, he wasn't Michael Jordan, whatever, right? Because he's making 1.1 out of every 2 that he shot. So I have him ahead for that reason. And then prime Shaq compared to prime Duncan is a no contest. It is not a comparison. And, he's even got a better prime 5 years than a couple of the guys that I have ahead of him on this list. And that's really saying something because I got him at 7. And we haven't talked about some really damn good players. I've got Shaq. I didn't know if I was going to side with Shaq ahead of Duncan and Kobe or between them or behind them. There's not a lot of room for me between Duncan and Kobe personally because they're so similar. And then the more I looked at it, the more I thought about prime 5 years Shaq. It's just too much, man. He's just too good. So I got him there.
Well said. I don't really have much to add to that, except that from the way that my approach works, it mandated Shaq at 7th because he's got 8 total MVPs. But this is a really interesting part about the narrative of Shaq, and it speaks to the points that you were making. They only gave Shaq 1 regular season MVP. They did give him 3 Finals MVPs during that Lakers run, that 3-peat with Kobe. But they only gave him 1 regular season MVP. And that becomes really egregious when contrasted against the fact that Shaq had 4 statistical MVPs.
Did he get screwed more than anybody, or did LeBron?
Nah, other guys. So Shaq, Jordan. as a multiplier, Shaq got screwed more than anybody, 4-1. But Kareem on the total.
Oh God, yeah, you're right.
He got 6 regular season MVPs. He had 11 statistical MVPs.
About Kareem, right?
Kareem's got a gap of 5. MJ's got a gap of 4. 9 statistical MVPs to 5 regular season. LeBron's got a gap of 1. LeBron's got 5 statistical MVPs, 1 regular season. And LeBron was kind of Magic-esque in that he had 5 straight firsts, which Magic had none. But then, so LeBron basically had this one career where he was just the best for half a decade, statistically, unquestionably. But then he also had a Magic career where he was second a bunch of times. He was second to Chris Paul in 07-08, and
he was in NBA Finals.
Yeah. There you go. Nice. Yeah. Okay, there we go.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. All right. 6. We're going to be so far apart on 6. It's going to be hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah, we aren't even close on 6. I promise.
We both got Shaq at 7. Okay, number 6. Go for it. Who you got?
Okay,
This is it, Chris. We're at the 48-minute mark. We've each got time to talk about one more player, and then we'll recap our top, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then our honorable mentions. Who you got at number 6?
The guy I got at number 6 has 5 statistical MVPs. That's where he's getting his boost from. 3 regular season and 1 finals. Nikola Jokic.
Oh my
6th.
God in heaven. Okay.
Yep. That's why I'm glad this is at the end. People can throw the tomatoes if they've lasted this long.
Yeah.
That's just how it worked out. That's
all right.
When we bring in the stats, that's where it went.
This is going to be tough. Should you did you bury the lead? Should you have said that you own $1 million worth of Nikola Jokic cards before you
bring the tomatoes out? I'm completely biased. I look like this was when I went with total MVPs, because just total MVPs has him tied for 9th with Moses and Shaq. So that's more reasonable even still, I think people would say that the total MVP approach has Jokic too high. But when you bring in stats, and arguably he's the greatest statistical player of all time, when you bring in stats, it just inflates him to a level that nobody's going to agree with. But that's what the approach had. And I'll tell you this, that's not even going to be the most controversial thing on my list.
My God. I mean, Pettit was controversial enough. Now you got Jokic in your top 6 all time. The guy's like 25 years old or something. He's got 10 years left to play basketball. He can trudge around forever. I don't know. I don't know where this is going. I don't even know how people are not going to want to watch the next episode. They're going to be pissed off. They got to wait a day to watch.
Dude, my top 5 has a curveball that's going to that I don't like. I don't like Jokic being in 6th. It's too high. But what I got when you see my top 5, I really didn't like the way one.
You're a slave to the numbers, Chris. What are you going to do? You know, look, I'll say this. I don't think people realize what's happening right under their noses. That he is arguably the greatest statistical basketball player that's ever played the game. I mean, I don't know how long this is going to go on. I mean, if you told me he was going to be this way for 5 more years, I'd say, okay. If you told me this year was the last year he's like this, I'm like, okay, anybody can tear an ACL or do an ankle or whatever.
Let me just say this on the statistical part, and then I'll just shut up because nobody wants to hear me talk about Jokic. I'm way too biased. Last season, Jokic averaged 30 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, and he shot 42% from 3 on volume, and he shot 58% on field goals, and he shot 80% on free throws. And he had the best on-off differential in the entire NBA. So no matter what way you wanted to cut it, whether it's his impact on plus minus, whether it's scoring, whether it's rebounding, whether it's assists, whether it's steals, he was top 3 in those 4 categories. He was top 20 in 3-point percentage.
Yep.
I mean, but here's the flip side. His team only won 50 games. He went out in the 2nd round. You know, like it's talking about him is complicated because
it's complicated to talk about any of these guys because it's a team sport. But I'm not. Exactly. You know, I am. Like if your total MVP thing, I don't even know what you want to call it now. We called it the McGill metric. Now you can make up another name that's got alliteration. But, you know, in your formula, you've got the best statistical player in the world that season. So that's one type of statistical MVP. You've got your regular season MVP over the course of 82 games. And you've got your maybe 5, 6, 7 game sample finals MVP. If you had to rank them in order of weight, which one means the most? Me personally, I'm going statistical MVP all day long. I've never reduced it to words or a name or a term, but those statistics, individual statistics, are always going to mean more to me than whether a player's team won 50 games or 57 games or lost in the 1st round or lost in the 2nd round. It's only when you get to splitting hairs like this, for me, that rings and alpha rings and examining the types of rings and when they won the rings, and who their teammates were, that comes into play. I want to start with who's the biggest badass MFer on the floor, and that is the statistical MVP. To me, carries the most weight. Do you have them in that order, or you like regular season MVP more? I just don't like relying on a bunch of writers to make my choice for me.
I agree. No, I think you made the case for why I would also have statistical MVP as my personal first. Now, if I'm talking to if I'm trying to relate to the general NBA fan base, then I think regular season MVP is the most important award. And if I'm trying to relate to the average, social media fan base discourse about who the greatest player is, which is, let's face it, we're still very much living in a rings culture, then I think in that context is finals MVPs that really determines who people think is the best. And let's be honest, like the reason for that is because a lot of people don't even watch the NBA until it's the finals. And we can tell that from the ratings. Like these NBA finals that are ongoing have about 10 million viewers per game. The regular season gets a 20th of that if it's not on a major network. And if it is on a major network, it gets, I don't know, a 10th, maybe up to a 5th of that. Maybe on a really high profile regular season game, Christmas Day game, stuff like that, you're going to see 2 million viewers. So there's the vast majority of people who are watching the finals, who are forming opinions about sports, who will go and talk about them. They're only really watching the best players from the 2 best teams from that season. And so there's a lot of bias and a lot of nostalgia for as we look back over time, over the best players on the championship team. So like there's a place in the conversation for all three of those. I don't think all three are equal. I do highly prioritize the statistical MVP, but I also acknowledge that consensus isn't going to see it that way. Consensus is going to shift in a very different direction, where like the championships, the guys who get the rings, especially the guys who are the best players on those teams, those guys, they're going to get a lot of weight. The regular season MVP is going to get some weight too. Statistics, unfortunately, that's going to get the least amount of weight. That's why people are going to see my list and they're going to see Jokic in 6th and they're going to say this is ridiculous. But that's also why I set up my algorithm in advance. I set it up at the algorithm level. From there, my choices was, what are the criteria? The criteria is these 3 MVP categories. After that, it's out of my hands. Whether I like the result or not, there's nothing I can do. That's the result says what it says.
My number 6 is Larry Bird, Legend. We did the video with Bird versus Magic, all right, which some people will recall and have watched. If not, go back and check it out. It's a fun one to watch. I'm old enough to have watched Magic and Bird do battle, and I was of the age of cognition where I knew what was going on. Chris was just a zygote, or not born at all, probably not born at all when Bird and Magic were relevant, but I got to see those guys do battle. What cuts against Bird? Obviously, we talked about it, is his longevity, man. Just didn't play very long. So he played 13 seasons, just like Bill Russell played 13 seasons. And similar to Bill Russell, he won 9. He was top 5 MVP voting 9 times in 13 seasons. So that's just how strong he was from day one until the day he could. Actually, the last couple of years where his back just barely didn't even work, right? He used to go lay down on the sidelines. So 9 out of 13 seasons, he was top 5 in MVP voting. If you compare him to the 3 guys behind him, right? Shaquille O'Neal, 8 times top MVP out of 19 seasons, so less than half. Tim Duncan, 9 times, same as Bird, but 19 seasons, less than half. And then Kobe Bryant, 11 times top 5 MVP voting out of 20 seasons, slightly more than half. But Bird, almost every time he took the floor, he was top 5 MVP voting. He also won, where's his MVPs? 3, which is more than Kobe and Duncan combined, or Duncan and Shaq combined, and almost as much as Duncan, Shaq, and Kobe combined. And that was during Magic's era where he was winning a few MVPs himself. Just everything about Bird checks every single box. He was actually a really good defensive player. People don't realize that because of what he looked like and the stereotypes, because he looks like a freaking, hillbilly serial killer, right? But he could play a little bit of defense. He rebounded the piss out of the ball. Over 10 rebounds a game for his career is crazy. For a guy that can't jump at all, although Jokic is doing the same thing, apparently. It would appear.
Could jump even less.
Jumping less. If that's possible, he's jumping less. You are correct. The only knock against Bird, and it's the same knock against Russell, they didn't play 1,000 games. Bird played 897 games, and Bill Russell played 963. Kobe, Duncan, and Shaq all played significantly more games, significantly more seasons, so they had significantly more opportunity. The reason I'm choosing Bird is because I truly believe that 3 to 4 year period where he won 3 consecutive MVPs was one of the most impressive 3 or 4 year runs in history. I think Jokic is on a similar arc right now. If you look at his last 3 or 4 seasons, and he seems to be trending in an even more impressive direction. Like, I think last season better than the seasons before? Yeah, probably. I mean, arguably, right?
You could maybe say, because in 22-23, the thing that pushed him over the top, maybe analytically, I think this is his second best season. The thing that made 22-23 a little bit better was that he led the league in true shooting percentage. That he normally he's around 63, 64, 66, 67. That season he was at 71. And I just think for whatever reason, just those push shots were going in a little bit more. He was just, everything was, the touch was a little bit better. And that uncoincidentally, I think that was the season that they won the championship. So I think I give the slight edge of 22-23, but last year, I mean, especially from a production standpoint, like in 22-23, he was like, 26, 13, and 9. And then last year that all went up to, 30, 13, and 10, and the steals and everything. And the 3-point shooting and stuff, like all of a sudden he's a 42% 3-point shooter. Not that his 3-point shots are difficult. He's not like Curry, having to shoot from 30 feet with 2 guys guarding him closely. Most of them are wide open. But the reason why it's wide open is because you can only guard him so many ways. But Bird, I love the Bird choice. And so this tells me by process of elimination that 4 of the 5 guys that we got are going to be the same in the top 5, and the difference is Bird Magic.
Yep.
So Magic's going to be your guy in the top 5 who I don't have, and obviously Bird is going to be mine.
That's it.
So, but then it's going to come down to how do we rank? How do we end up ranking these 5? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the real deal with the top 4 or top 3 especially, is what order do you put those cats in and why? Well, I think people are going to enjoy that one. This one was a harder one to do than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think is going to be a little bit easier for me than these were. This is tough, and you've kind of swayed me. I mean, maybe I didn't even think about Jokic in the top 10. Maybe I need to go back and check and just pretend to get by a bus.
You've got a more holistic approach where you're looking at career averages, you're looking at longevity. You're looking
how many games has Jokic played? Let's go. Can we check that? How many games has Jokic played?
He's got to maybe be around 700 or 800. That's kind of roughly where I'm guessing.
745.
Yeah.
So you got to realize Bird's career is almost over.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Imagine if Jokic retired tomorrow, we'd be like, wait, what the hell? You're halfway done. What are you doing?
Yep.
That was Bird Magic, man.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Both of them got cut.
Both of them, right? For different reasons.
Yeah.
Tell me, give me your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 again. Say it again.
Okay. So from 6 through 10, I got 6 is Jokic, 7 is Shaq, 8 is Magic Johnson, 9 is Bill Russell, and 10 is Tim Duncan.
Okay. And Kobe is not in your 10.
Yep. So me and you basically traded out Jokic and Kobe. And then I don't know, man, these guys 6 through 10, these guys are so close to each other. Like,
yeah.
What are you going to do?
Amazing. Incredible. This is a great conversation piece, and I'm still hung up on Bob Pettit. Let me ask you a question, though. Let me ask you a trivia question. You ready for this one?
Let's go.
This is about to blow your mind.
Okay.
Who drafted Bill Russell?
Who drafted Bill Russell? You mean the individual or the team? Which team
drafted Bill Russell?
Man, I know there were shenanigans and allegations.
Yep.
Well, there are allegations, shenanigans of how the Boston
territorial
Celtics got all these
bullshit
best players.
But which team technically drafted him?
Man, I don't even know if I could tell you the name of half the teams.
Well, there's only 8 teams, so you got a 1 in 7 chance because it's not the Celtics. Isn't that crazy?
Well, they had the Philadelphia Warriors back then.
Not them.
How
about this? Chris, he could have been in the backcourt with your guy, Bob Pettit. I mean, he could have been in the front court with Bob Pettit. He got drafted by the Hawks, my friend.
So how did he get to the Celtics?
It was some territorial deal. We got to pull it up on Google or whatever. But Red Auerbach claimed some rights because he was located nearby or some bullshit. I don't know how that works because San Francisco is where he went to college. That's about as far from Boston as you can get. I mean, I'm no genius, but
you think the Celtics are going to try to pull this on Cooper Flagg too and say, look, he grew up in the Northeast. We got the territorial rights here. See Bill Russell.
He spent a weekend at a Red Sox game, so we get him. No, he was actually traded for Cliff Hagan and Easy Ed McCauley. So I thought it was some kind of like forced trade where like the Hawks had to give compensation and the Celtics took him or something. I don't remember, but
you said old Easy Ed.
Easy Ed. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then another little known fact, since it's Cajun Cardboard and we're here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or at least I am, he was born in Monroe, Louisiana.
Okay.
Just up the road in North Louisiana where UL Monroe is.
Louisiana it's got some basketball roots. It's got some basketball history.
Sneaky roots, man. Ben Simmons. Let's start there.
Yeah. Okay. Ben Simmons. Do you remember when Colin Cowherd? My favorite hot take of all time.
We don't need LeBron. We got Ben Simmons.
LeBron, you can retire. We got it from here.
We don't need you. Ben will take it from here.
But you know what? That might not even be the greatest hate on LeBron moment by a talking head. That might actually be Skip Bayless when he said Johnny Manziel is going to be a bigger star in Ohio than LeBron ever will be.
Well, he missed on both of those claims. He couldn't have been more wrong in both ways on those two.
We could do a ranking of the worst takes ever, and those are 2 top.
That
10.
would be a great video, dude. That would be a great video. We would have to really put in some time and energy.
Maybe we could ChatGPT on it, and that could help us.
What are the dumbest things people have said on television when it pertains to sports? All right, that's it. This is part 2. Or part 1 of 2 parts. Next, I think we're going to schedule these. So you should see the next episode 1 through 5 tomorrow. And we'll record them a few days apart, but we'll schedule them one day apart. And so you got to wait 24 hours or 23 hours, and then you'll catch the next one tomorrow night on the Cajun Cardboard channel. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon for notifications. Check out Card Ladder. If you're watching this and you collect cards, go check out Card Ladder. It's Chris McGill's brainchild. It is an indispensable tool that I use, and hundreds of thousands of people. I'm going to say billions of people. Billions of people are using Card Ladder around the world to price their sports cards and to make intelligent decisions when it comes to their collecting and investing in sports cards. Go check out Card Ladder, cardladder.com. I've got a link in this YouTube description that you can take you right to it. Just go sign up. It's too cheap. I tell them all the time it's too cheap, but they won't raise the price. So get in while the getting's good. Chris, thanks for joining, man. And we're going to schedule it. We're going to do 1 through 5, and 1 through 5 is going to be fun because the order is going to be everything.
Yeah, man, I've loved this. This has been an awesome, fun way to sort of wrap up this NBA season and think, because we always get nostalgic and wax poetic as every NBA season ends and we think about what it means historically. So this has been a lot of fun, man. I can't wait to do 5 through 1, and
cool.
People are going to be mad, and that's okay.
That's okay, right? Everybody's got their opinion. You say it, you support it, and we'll get some not so constructive comments about it, and we'll go from there. Thank you guys for watching. Keep collecting. Stay positive in the hobby. Peace.